Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 42 in the Cobra Jet series, also known as Slither. Now in the previous videos, recent videos, I have done epoxy primer on the bottom of the car, the inside of the car, and worked on the exterior in different areas, and also sprayed undercoating in the wheel wells and different areas on the bottom side of the car. What I want to do now is paint the engine bay. Now the sequence on this is normally you would have a car and you would paint the body and then come back and paint the engine bay separate. But I don't want to do that simply because I'm going to be putting in all new suspension components, steering components, all that sort of thing, and I don't want to kind of go back and forth. I would rather have everything taken care of now, and then when I bolt the suspension on so I can roll it back into the paint booth, I'm not having to deal with paint on those items. And I think it just makes more sense overall for me to do it that way. So let me give you an overview of the process and we'll see what we can do to get it done. So I think I mentioned before that Charles had bought this Ford paint, a semi-gloss paint, and this is a PPG mix. So if we look at that, it is black shopline JAU Ford, and gives you that information there. So we have that. We have some reducer, and we also have some medium top coat hardener. So once I get everything prepped and ready, this is what I'm going to be spraying on the engine bay. So of course I will have to do a bunch of prep work in here. You know that I've sprayed this and then I sprayed the red epoxy, so there is a little bit of overspray that is on the inside of the aprons and even on the frame rails. And all of this will get painted in a way that if you're looking down inside of the engine bay, it'll all be black. And everything underneath that already has the red epoxy on it, like down here, inside of these areas, that's going to remain. I'm not going to do anything with that. And the other thing I want to do is I will mask off this red and leave that red the way it is. I've seen that in other videos and I kind of like the way that looks, so that's the plan at this point. That may change, but that's kind of what I want to do, is replicate that. So obviously I'm going to have to do some prep work in here and get it ready for paint. Okay, so I've scuffed most of this here. I've gone over some of the core support, and I'm just going to continue to get all this ready using this red Scotch-Brite. Some of this, you know, is just hard to get into with like a DA or something, so you have to kind of unleash the elbow grease, right? And I want to make sure I have all of this ready to go, so when I spray, it's a one-time deal. I'm not having to redo things. Now, I did scuff the inside of the brace here. I did a little bit on the edge of this one, so hopefully you can see where I'm looking. Because I'm going to be spraying this, and the intention is they sprayed this as if they were coming in from the top and then spraying, right? So my thought is, if I'm spraying it even turned sideways, I can't take advantage of that angle. I have to kind of do what they did, in a sense. So I don't want to get overkill and scuff too much. I'm still debating on leaving that in red. I don't know that I like it. I consider the idea that I would tape this off right here, but then where do I stop? Do I tape it all the way back? And I might do that, just use this flange, come across and retape that, and just leave all of this in red. Or would they have painted it and just kind of let it flow over the top? So with that in mind, this plate would have deflected. You know, if you look at it from the idea of spraying this direction, this would have been, you know, painted, and this would have been painted, but this area here would have been left red. So I don't know it's that critical. I want it to kind of look close, but I'm not worried about it being dead on exact. So just some thoughts that I'm going through as I'm finishing up the prep work The core support, I did sand the front of it. Or well, I sanded the top of this area right here with the DA. And I'll probably scuff this face. The challenge, of course, is I have a rotisserie in the way. So, you know, if I try to paint in there, there's a possibility I can get some runs in that, because as I'm trying to apply paint, you can't just fan across and hope for the best. And if I come from underneath, that defeats the whole purpose here. That's cheating, right? So I don't want to do anything to mess this up. So I don't know how I'm going to approach that just yet. I'm still kind of working that out, because it's going to be tricky to get the fan right on a gun to spray in there. But it's not going to take much more to have this ready for some paint. And the other difficulty, the other challenge is I don't spray much in single stage. So, you know, if you have a base coat, you can go back and touch it up, or you know, when you clear it and stuff like that, you can address some things. It gives you more time to fix things, let's say. So in this case, when you do single stage, it's kind of one and done, or at least that's the intent. And I'm confident I can pull it off, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't do this regularly. And I know there's people that paint all the time and they have no issue with it. I stress over the paint because I want it to be right, and I don't like to redo things. Okay, I have everything scuffed and ready to paint. I'll point out that I went ahead and scuffed up the mount points down here for the lower control arms. I thought it was a better idea to do that because they would not have taped anything off at the factory. And so I scuffed around all of that, and whatever paint sticks to it is fine. If it doesn't, that's okay as well. But everything else is ready to go. I will touch up any areas with some self-etch primer if there are some bare spots, and there are a few. And then I will get this masked up, clean everything, and then get ready to spray. Okay, so I've started wiping this down, and as usual, I use Windex. Now this is just to get the dust off. I'm not prepping it for actual paint yet. I just want to get all the dust off. I've blown this off. I showed some of that in time lapse. And, you know, we've used Windex, and I've even had my PPG rep tell me to use Windex to clean off the dust and stuff. And I've always done that. We did it at the body shop, and do that prep work, get all the dust off first, and then later on wipe it down with wax and grease remover. So I've never had a problem with it. I know some people have questioned this as to if it's a good idea or not, but it's a fairly cheap way to wipe stuff down, and it evaporates. And of course, when you add air to it, it blows it off, you know, blows it out and dries it. And then, like I said, I'll come back with the wax and grease remover and go over it one more time anyway. So just I don't know, just the way I've always done things. And like I said, our PPG rep who paints, he also does this on every car that he paints. So, and I've had, I'll say old school guys come out and say, yep, that's the best way to do it. And then you have younger people, or maybe a different approach saying, no, that's risky. I don't know. I haven't had a problem with it. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to look really good. At least in my opinion. It should look really good. Okay, now to get all the other prep work done, again, masking, tape on the backside here, tape on the backside of the firewall, inside of any of these holes on the aprons, those will all get masked. All right, everything is sanded down, wiped down with wax and grease remover, and taped off. I put some paper on the outside here. I put some plastic on the floor, and I still have to apply some self-etch to some of the bare metal areas. And I'll show you that this is what I use, is this self-etching primer from SEM, and it works really well. Part number is right there. So I use either black or gray. And I have some paper up on the windshield. I'm just trying to keep the overspray down as much as I can. I will be spraying the black that Charles had bought. So I'll be mixing this up in just a minute and getting ready to spray. More details on my Patreon page. That's really large. Woo. That looks better. I can't spray straight down like I'm standing on top of it because I can't stand on top of it. So I have to kind of do my own version of that. I think what I'm going to do is just kind of approach it like that. I don't want to put too much on right now.
We're going to see how this dries. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this shiny or if it'll be duller once we get it to dry. So woohoo!
All right, I have sprayed this with the material that Charles had provided me with, and it's very shiny, and I don't particularly like it. I don't think that was his intent, and I'm not going to leave it like this. It just doesn't make any sense to have it this shiny. Normally the car would have had more of a flatter look to it, obviously, so I'm going to have to do something different. And what I have done is I did a spray of semi-gloss here. This was actually a Rust-Oleum product, and this is a Krylon, and this is what I used on Jade when I sprayed it, but I am going to spray it with this semi-gloss. So I'm going to scuff everything down and shoot it again, and then we'll take another look at it. Okay, I've been going back and forth on this, and I've tried different paints. I've tried, I have some matte fusion right there, some matte and some satin, and I had the semi-gloss, and I also had some satin Rust-Oleum. And so to show you, the paint on the left is matte and the paint on the right is the satin, and that's with the Krylon. And then that is the satin Rust-Oleum, and I've decided that's going to be the winner. I was really struggling with this, but I really don't have many choices, I don't think, so that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to get it sprayed and then we'll look at it again. Okay, so I've sprayed it with the satin, and I think it looks really good. Much happier with this compared to that high gloss stuff. So sometimes you just have to make adjustments, and I think I made the right choice here. As well, the underneath can still show the red, so that's good. And as I mentioned, the next step is going to be swapping out the suspension. Now I have all these original pieces from the car. I'm only going to be saving the spindles and the calipers, and I think that's about it. Everything else isn't really worth hanging on to, but these pieces will be saved and then sent back with the car when it's all finished, at least as far as I get with it, and we'll go from there. So I'll have to take those spindles off, get them cleaned up and painted, and then start putting the suspension back underneath the car so I can get it off of the rotisserie. Alright, 2 thumbs up on this part of the project. You know, there's still a lot to do. I do plan to strip off more of the weld-through primer off of the outside of the car, but the goal is to get it on the suspension, and so there's multiple steps involved with that. I'll have to clean up the pieces that I plan to reuse, and then of course start bolting everything on so that it can get on the ground. Then I'm going to continue to fit the doors, the fenders, make sure all the gaps are right in preparation for epoxy and any body filler that needs to happen, and then high build, and then paint, and then buff, and you know, all that stuff. So that'll come as we move forward. But I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank my patrons for supporting me. There are longer videos on Patreon that deal with this process. So the week before, I have a video that's probably twice as long dealing with the work that I did on painting the car on the inside and also the roof patches that I did. So if you want to check that out, go have a look at Patreon and we'll go from there. But as it is, I thank everybody for participating, for commenting, for being here, and helping me to continue to make these videos. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.
Well, I'm not going to do any running.